to Movie of the Year, the only podcast that has the science and the screaming to determine what the best movie is of any given year. I'm your host, Mike Gravano, and this year is 1996. So find your turbo, man, unbreak my heart, and pull up your squirrel nut zippers. Before I introduce this week's panelists, know this, that this show is also a game in which points are awarded for well-made arguments, cogent thoughts about the film, jokes, and anything else I gosh darn feel like awarding. The winner will be my best friend for a week, and of course, have gloating rights. But more importantly, not feel like they watched the movie wrong. Joining me this week, I like that they're my knock list. They're my ghost protocols. These bros are my Rogue Nation. Give it up first for Ryan.
Hey, Mike. Thanks for falling out with me. You're my fallout.
I assume that's a Mission Impossible movie I haven't seen, and so you get a point.
Mission Impossible Fallout.
And that is Greg.
Hey, I'm just here to give my Dead Reckoning part 1.
And of course, Mike, I'm always here as your MI2 and Mission Impossible 3. And that's the whole series.
Not to jump forward to the recommendation portion, but I recommend nobody ever see Mission Impossible 2.
Oh, it is a stinkeroo.
We're doing Mission Impossible. That's what we're doing, clearly.
That's why somebody would say that.
That's why we're all saying that. And so I'll start with me. Normally I don't. I am dumb in that I watched Mission Impossible, the movie we're talking about tonight, in theaters, and I was like, this is boring. I hate this. I was like 9 or 10. And remember liking 2, and then as an adult I've gone back and went, I was dumb and flipped it.
Yes.
And I rewatched number 1 a handful of years ago, and I went, this movie fucking slaps. Why am I not as into the Mission Impossible series as I am into Fast and the Furious? I need to do my due diligence. I have yet to do that due diligence because you have to leave yourself wanting more. But yeah, this movie rules. I'm going to get that out of the way right now. Suck it. Greg, how do you feel?
It's so weird, Mike. I had the same kind of journey with it that you did, which is I was a kid.
Well,
and
somebody wants points.
I think my problem with it when I was a kid was I was like, so much about this movie is extremely absurd. And now as an adult watching it, the movie is obviously aware that it is completely absurd. That's kind of the point of most of it.
Right.
And I feel like the movie goes out of its way to prove to you that it's being absurd. And so, yeah, it's going to be over the top because that's the whole point of it. I was blown away this week. I like it so much, and I'm so excited to talk about it because it just has a little bit of everything, including huge question marks about, I wonder what happens here. I wonder what that means. I wonder what was really going on there. Very fun and very, very exciting movie.
And go ahead, watch it again. You'll never know.
Yeah, honestly, every time you could watch the movie multiple times and every time have a different goal in mind for like something to pay attention to. And you'll feel like for a second, you'll feel like you're getting an answer and then you'll realize it's not really an answer.
I used to do that as a kid so much. I was like, all right, rewatch 37 of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. This time, just pay attention to the freeway part.
Yeah.
What the hell does that mean?
Yes, exactly.
What do they say about freeways?
Because it is hard to pay attention to a movie as much as you have to for as long as you have to. A movie is constantly delivering information to you. Some of it is trying to train you how to understand it. And if you get distracted even slightly, you might miss like a linchpin of some element of the movie. And this movie is throwing so much stuff at you so quickly that it's very easy to just drift off for a second and miss something.
It's different than books, which grab you by the guts and like forces you to pay attention. There's nothing else. Not even your own brain. You're kind of in it. And also you get to slow down or speed up the book as much as you want to.
And I don't know why, but there's something about when you're reading a book, I'm constantly going backwards and forwards. With a movie, there's a little bit less. I do with movies, but there's a little bit less of an inclination to be like, I'm going to watch that whole scene over again.
I mean, the easiest thing to do is just watch it at one GIF at a time, and then and when you're done watching it, you can move on. I remember when this movie came out, it was a pretty big deal. It was in that glut of TV shows that are becoming movies, and some of them were excited for, some of them were not. This was a bigger hit than, say, McHale's Navy, believe it or not.
Or the original Avengers movie.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, everybody, the original Avengers movie?
With Uma and Rafe?
Yeah, dude.
As Black Widow and Captain America. And so I remember this movie being a pretty big deal, but sort of coming out of it of like, I didn't really get that, and not in a Joker folie à deux way, but I'm pretty sure I, as an audience member at that time, wasn't supposed to, right? Like, there's something a little bit not for kids to watch. As the franchise went on, I remember hating 2, and then I remember liking 3 way more than anybody else. And then from there, like, I think it, surpassed Bourne and even, dare I say, Fast and the Furious with...
It definitely did the Fast and Furious thing, though, where it was one series of movies up until about the 4th, and then it Fast and Furious style cuts to a stick shift shifting, and suddenly it's like the movie series then becomes like a different thing.
But it's almost like that thing, and I'm not going to get this order right, but it's like the Beatles heard Pet Sounds and made Revolver, and then Rolling Stones heard Revolver and made Exile, and they just kept like... That's what these action franchises were doing. And yeah, I think Mission Impossible does owe a lot to other franchises, particularly Fast and Furious. But the first one, for sure, had this weird reputation where it wasn't like 2 or 3, and it certainly was not like 4 through 7 or 8 or wherever we're at. And I had an awesome week with it as well. I can't wait to dive into it. There's so much good. There's so much bad that is good. I mean, like, I'll argue about the bad as good, and that sort of comes with the De Palma name on it, I think.
It's good because it's good, but it's great because it's bad. Dude, that's really...
Yeah, I think there was, in the 90s, just action as a whole was weird. Like, 80s, kind of like horror action was like, oh, blah, and then sequels or fading stars, and then... The people are trying things. You get your random pop-ups like Face Off, but then there's your broken arrows, your cliffhangers. People are like, what the fuck is action anymore? Your Air Force Ones. And then I think the 90s might be the dumbest decade in the fucking history of people. Yeah. And especially because, like, there are people who are trying to do something and sort of comment on your thing, but not in a scream way. So people are like, this is dumb. I don't get it. What's going on here?
Yeah, they need that Craven, the Hunter way of like putting it out there. I am going to say though, and hopefully I can argue this throughout the show, that it's my favorite thing. This is a milestone in the genre. Like everything led up to this, and then nothing was the same after this in a couple particular ways.
Yeah, I think it kind of set the table for a type of blockbuster that now we take for granted, but we didn't really have before this.
And maybe some right lessons learned by Hollywood from this movie, maybe some wrong lessons learned.
Wrong lesson? No. Every movie needs an aquarium, and it needs to explode. Come on, Hollywood, get on that.
Every 100-gallon aquarium needs 1.2 tons of water inside of it.
We are getting so dangerously close to actually talking about this movie, so we're going to halt that momentum, take a break of the quickest varietal, and when we come back, dig in to Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible kicked off in 1966 and ran for 7 seasons, chronicling the exploits of a small team of covert government agents known as the Impossible Missions Force, or IMF, which I learned researching this. That's stupid. IMF had cryptic ties to a branch of the U.S. government that was never defined, and the crew was a rotating cast of agents with various skills, including Jim Phelps, who would become the main character starting in Season 2 and then once again in the reboot in 1988. The powers that be started trying to make a theatrical film version since 1978, but didn't have any real momentum until the creation of Cruise Wagner Productions in 1992, who decided Mission Impossible would be their inaugural project. Came out in May 1996 and would go on to be the 3rd highest grossing film of that year, leading to 7 more movies for now. And the DNA of the film series is all laid out in this first film, no matter what else will change. Face-changing masks? Check. Getting the band together? Oh yeah. Sexy betrayal? You know it. Tom Cruise doing his own stunts? You better believe it, baby. The difference here is the direction of the Hitchcock lover and former Moody participant Brian De Palma. And this could be seen as the movie that planted the seed for everything Tom Cruise would become in the 2000s. So taste buds, your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to answer this question. This is the second De Palma we've covered, following 1973's Sisters. And that's not a lot of coverage, but he's probably been the most discussed director off air. That's right, listeners. We talk a lot about movies off air, too. How does he help or sink this movie amongst the glut of films based on 60s TV shows coming out at this time?
I mean, I'm so shocked that he got this job. He had a flop before this. I think it was Bonfire of the Vanities. Oh, and then show classic, movie of the year classic Carlito's Way that has never been talked about despite being watched, I think was a hit enough for him to get this movie. And I still can't believe it because this should have been the time. You would think, because of recency bias, that this was the time where everybody was hedging their bets and giving movies to whatever the 1996 version of the Russo brothers were. And for him to take this movie and for him to get trusted with his budget, I think was shocking and worked like gangbusters. Not to sound like somebody from The Untouchables, but I think this movie would have been born. I think you could have swapped the star, would have been fine. Swap the director, ass.
He does an amazing job in this. He trains the audience. He tricks the audience. He befuddles the audience several times. One of the things he did that I was really impressed with was he kind of like slowly leads from the scale of television, where the series, the opening image of the movie is of a TV, and they're like watching the action on a TV.
Right.
And then the hotel room turns out to just be like a little set, right? But the movie starts off really small, and for a while you think, okay, yeah, this is going to be kind of like a small movie about like slick agents. And then by the end of it, you've got like helicopter chase, and De Palma is just constantly, very slowly turning up the radio stat on that, and just making us like feel like we're getting comfortable with the scope of the movie, and then he amplifies it. And we're getting a little comfortable with the action of the movie, he amplifies it. And by the end of it, he basically like has us in the palm of his hand, and he hasn't done it through a lot of like, I don't know, in-your-face trickery. Like it's just he like comes up with good ideas in this movie, and he's not afraid to kind of stand out of the way and let these ideas breathe a little bit. Like, I don't feel like he directed...
There's not a lot of De Palma stank on this.
There are a couple of shots. There are a couple of, like, real De Palma, like, split diopter, or just using, like, the elevator, like, to kind of create two frames in one frame. Like, that stuff is in there, but it's, like, nestled into a movie that is not, like, trying to wow you with the way it's shot, you know?
Another way he guides us from the beginning is there's two main missions. There's two intro missions before we get to our main story. And normally this kind of movie, you're like, you should have one. But the first one is to build tension. And also, as you said, Greg, this is TV, don't trust anything because this is a set.
Yeah.
And these people aren't who you think they are. And then the second one is where we're like, we've seen the team be successful, so we know they're good. And look at them. They're like a family. They're all friends. You know them. You love them. It's John Voight and Tom Cruise and Emilio Estevez and some foreign actresses. So this is going to be your crew. And then, no, that they are all dead. Because both of those feel like a different intro to different Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah.
But there's something that fits locking them together.
I think that he is trying to spend Paramount's money wisely, right? Because this is a long time after Sisters, which is the only other movie we can reference because that's the only other movie of the year movie. And he doesn't want to ruin it. Like, again, he's not Todd Phillips, but he does. I think this is another way where he doesn't want people to be comfortable in their seat. He wants people to be confused. And this is long before MacGruber or Deadpool 2 or this idea of like building the team just to kill him. Like having the whole montage and everything. And I think people will see Emilio in 96, not now, but in 96, see Emilio Estevez get smushed at the top of an elevator and be like, how's he going to, I mean, he's going to come back, but when? How?
Yes.
Like, what's going on here?
It's so funny rewatching the movie and being like, oh, I forgot Emilio Estevez was even in this. I wonder why. Oh, yeah, now I remember. He got squished.
He got repoed, man. Was there...
I know what that is.
Was there some flourishes, though, that did take you out? Like some of the Dutch angles or the...
Only because, like, I was a professed De Palma hater because of movies we're not allowed to talk about because we didn't do them for Movie of the Year. And then I was pretty charmed by Sisters. And so I was looking for the De Palma-isms or like, how is he going to rip off Hitchcock this time? And there was only a couple of times that really stuck out as like, that's De Palma showing he's still got it.
I feel like there's one particular scene. The scene in the restaurant called the Aquarium.
He's like using up all of his De Palma points in that scene.
I do feel, though, that is where he's really trying to underline what is the actual tone of this movie. Because he has started off with when to go back to the TV thing, when they're in that first initial meeting, that dialogue I feel like is supposed to be like sitcom level dialogue. So we're in that world. And then he kills the whole crew. And so then it's like, well, what's the tone of this movie exactly? By the time you get to the end of the aquarium scene, he has totally sunk in what the tone is going to be for you. And so like I do think you start noticing the extreme Dutch angles. That's the scene where it's like,
but it's like swing the pendulum too far so
Yes.
it'll land where I want it to be.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's when you're first introduced to Kitteridge. And I don't know what I thought about Kitteridge's 1996, but I am so rowdy for this dude.
All-time villain, just absolutely iconic character and performance.
And I have to say, I've always loved Agent Smith from The Matrix.
Mm-hmm.
He is kind of copying Kitteridge's style here. And what I really like about the actor that plays Kitteridge is like he's having fun with it. He's letting that voice like roll around his mouth.
And if you look at his IMDb, he has played a suit in every like Clancy-esque movie.
Well, he looks
80s
like
and
how
90s.
he looks like.
He looks like how he looks like, right? With that like gets a haircut it's not necessarily Alec Baldwin, but like gets a haircut every 3 days and just only wears suits. And he's always playing that guy who has got like 13 lines throughout the movie. And now he gets to sink his teeth into this role.
I love regularly scheduled haircut guys because they'll miss one scheduled haircut and they'll come up to you and they'll be like, "Oh man, I can't believe how long
I'm
my
so
hair's
sorry
been.
about
I feel
this
so
right now."
fucking, I feel so shaggy. I look like a hippie. I'm so sorry." And you can't tell any difference.
But what I appreciate about his performance as Kittredge is he's not mustache twirling. It feels like De Palma said, "Hey, you're a bureaucrat, and that makes you so fucking rock hard. You love bureaucracy, and you love your country, and will do anything to stay rock hard for it." And that's because he's not like, "I got you now," which I think a lesser actor would play it.
But if you look at the whole series, and Mike, you said that this sets up the floor plan or plants the seeds for the rest of the series, and that's something that now we have to all agree with, is that
having seen 1, 4, and whenever Jeremy Renner shows up, I think I can.
What is it with you? Like, you will only watch a movie if it's a Renner. Like,
yeah,
if he's out, then you're out.
And if he's not in it, I'm listening to his albums.
One of the things that they all have in common, and it starts here, is that there is sometimes a mustache twirling villain, like Philip Seymour Hoffman in 3, or Henry Cavill cocking his fucking arm.
Hell yeah, dude.
But a lot of the series will almost routinely have, but actually it's the U.S. government that like wants to leave you out in the cold is the real villain. And Henry Czerny or Kittredge starts it here. Yeah. And that's the other thing I want to talk to you guys about with De Palma, because camera angles with him are obvious, right? I don't think he's going to get confused with like Spielberg or anything like that. But his need to make sure that everybody, literally and with the mass and figuratively, has 2 or 3 faces, that's the other thing that keeps you guessing the whole time. And I don't think Kittredge, we can talk about any character as far as this goes, but I don't think Kittredge is changing his personality or his character. It's just that they're all doing 2 or 3 things and also doing the bidding of De Palma, who wants to put you in a certain place. Yeah, and you could think that's cheating, but I think it's fucking dope.
I love the way the movie discloses things to you and then acts like it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's so many times where the movie shows you, like, well, you know, she's involved in it. And then it just, for the next 3 scenes, it acts like it has not disclosed that to you. And then reveals it again. Like, well, and you kind of get, like, some of these twists you get, like, a couple times.
That's the part that I was like, wait, what the fuck? And then I was like, why would it show us the twist before Ethan Hunt gets anything revealed to him? And then I thought about it, and I was like, oh, the reason like certain scenes get quick edits there because it's showing his internal. He's rethinking it right now. He is lying to John Voight. He's seeing the real picture and editing what he must assume is going on.
Well,
I am dumber than this movie. And I really thought, I was like, this movie fucked up.
I thought it was a scene with Kittredge, but he's going through and saying, "Oh, I get it. You were. Oh no, you're right.
No,
it
yeah.
Is with,
this is what's so genius about this scene. That Ethan is saying what John Voight needs to hear.
Yes.
But imagining what's actually happening at the same time, and then coming to a point in the story where he realizes, I don't know the answer to who killed the other woman in the group, and so I have to figure that out now over the rest of the movie.
Now, if you're 10, fuck that scene. I don't
That's
know what's happening.
confusing as shit.
You're being an asshole right now. But if you're 29, almost 30, like me,
As we
and
all are.
and watching it now, you're just like, how have I not seen this before or since in any movie?
And you know that Ethan is doing that, and it shows you exactly how genius he is, because he's also like monitoring Jim's like feedback to all of this, and he's like, Jim's giving everything away without realizing that he is. And at the same time, the audience is aware of what's going on, but kind of confused by what's going on at the same time. It also
kind of makes
exciting scene.
It kind of makes you think that if you rewatch it, having understood that scene, that is his Pete Mitchell personality, how he is often maverick-like throughout many scenes of this movie enact. So he has that in his back pocket to just be that idiot flyboy jokester,
Right.
even though his mind is different than that. He actually has smarts, unlike Maverick, who I find to be stupid.
In that second intro mission, there's a lot of people who are staring right at the camera as if they were extras in Russian Ark.
Yeah.
And I was just like, what? Did they hire extras off the street? And then some of them are the other agents who are hunting him. So it is De Palma being like, yeah, I don't know, maybe pay attention to that waiter. Some of them are not.
Yeah.
And I do think some of the extras are just staring, and it is, but it's like, oh, well, if you're an agent and you're paranoid as fuck, maybe it seems like everybody is staring at you and knows you're wearing the stupidest, most obvious camera glasses on your face.
Well, haven't we all played that Hitman or Hitman-like video game where you're like, oh, that's the guy, and you just murder an innocent maitre d'?
Yep.
Like, he was not at fault at all. We've been talking about De Palma all this time, and we have not mentioned the words Langley or Chunnel, and I feel like that if we're doing a list of the top 10 action scenes or top of the 90s or 100 action scenes of all time, just those, I mean, they can go, they're monogamous. What is it called? Monomany?
Synonymous?
Langley and Chunnel. Like, people just know what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah. Metonymy.
Metonymy, thank you.
Metonymy.
Yeah, I have to say the Chunnel one was the one where I was a kid, and I was like, this is so dumb, I hate it. And then as an adult,
That's so weird, dude.
As a 40 plus, I was like, this is so dumb, but I kind of like how dumb it is, because there's no way that adults put this together and didn't understand that this was too much.
Yeah.
That it was too stupid, too over the top.
But, I mean, look at, if you watch the last 10 minutes of almost any Hitchcock movie out of context, you are going to roll your eyes so hard.
Yeah.
You know, and like, if you're watching Cary Grant hang off Mount Rushmore, knowing that he was like an insurance salesman not but 2 hours ago, but that's like that's the goal of the movie, is to get you there. And I can totally see how, whether you were too smart or too dumb for that scene, but right now you're perfect porridge, baby.
Yes.
And it fit perfectly.
At what age do you think kids can get camp?
That's
and
the
that
thing.
It's intentional.
That's the thing. I don't.
Older.
I don't think I understood that there are a bunch of positions in between James Bond and Austin Powers. I didn't understand, and I specifically didn't understand what Mission Impossible the TV show was, because I do think he's trying to reproduce something, and part of what's going on is I still now have no contact with the source material for any of this.
Yeah.
But now I can just read the energies a little bit differently. When I was a kid, I think I watched movies to understand what life was, and if I could tell that a movie was depicting like some sort of response to art and not actually depicting life, I think I got a little upset because I was trying to figure out what life was. And so I am literally every moment I am trying to forget what life is.
Give me that art.
Yeah, I'm trying to press myself as much as I can into like the fictional world. And so now I am happy to not think of a realistic helicopter crash, and instead think of this helicopter chained to the back of a bullet train going through the channel. That's the stupidest, best thing I've ever seen.
And then after all that momentum, it stops an inch from Tom Cruise's neck.
How
the
dumb.
blade of the helicopter.
How dare you? That's the stupidest thing I've ever seen, and I love you for it.
That's the kind of thing. I do think that there should have been a super, super close-up of just one chin hair getting like shaved off. But that's the kind of thing, that one shot is the kind of thing that wouldn't exist if there weren't trailers. But like, you need that for the trailer.
I will tell you, the scene that I still am impressed with but understand differently is the Langley wire scene, which is big. That's bigger than the movie, certainly, right? And the thing I noticed this time around that I didn't notice before is what a parallel it's drawing between superhero Ethan Hunt and just awful cucky William Lenlow or whatever that guy's name is.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Complete piece
Diarrhea
of
man.
Yeah, all we know about him is he vomits all the time. He wouldn't even notice if a beautiful woman sat right next to him. His job is sitting on computer, quite literally. His chair is attached to the computer, and I guess he types into the document. What does he do? Why is
He goes, things are still good.
If you've
Enter.
ever seen a black comedian from the 90s do an impression of a white dude, it's this
That's
guy.
this dude.
Yeah.
Seriously. The way he walks, the way he vomits. Do you ever notice black people vomit like this and white people vomit like this?
Do we think De Palma's tone is perfectly captured throughout the movie? Is it ever wonky, or is it well captured, soup to nuts?
Oh, I think that it's perfect in its crescendo, like going off of what Greg said with the starting small and getting bigger. The tone does that too. I think that like he really does attempt and earn now, maybe not then, but I think now in hindsight, because I don't think this was a crazy well-reviewed movie.
No, like
that,
people
like,
liked it and it was a big movie, but nobody talked about it the way we're talking about it.
Yeah,
right
it was
now.
not till we stepped in and we fucking did it.
We
But
had the bravery.
it was Tom Cruise, Langley Channel. That was it, right?
Yeah.
And so, but like him getting to the point, like we were talking about, where the channel scene can happen, and you're like, "Fuck yeah, that's him." Like, and let's talk about De Palma instead of Hitchcock, instead of North by Northwest. Look at the end of Untouchables, which, out of context, should be super ridiculous.
Yes.
That I'm
gonna hold this stroller on the stairs.
and just pay all this homage, more than homage to this 1917 movie, just so everybody knows how big my fucking film dick is. But
Right.
in the context of the movie, hell yeah.
Also, this is a type of movie we don't really get anymore, which is the movie that celebrates practical effects, both within the movie, but also like as a shout out to practical effects. Every other Mission Impossible does the mask thing, but
Yeah.
no other Mission Impossible does literally like puts the characters in a mask. And it's not that they ever trick us. We know that it's Tom Cruise. The second we see that Ross Perot looking motherfucker, we know that
that's exactly.
we
what it
know
looks
that that's Tom Cruise.
Holy shit, was the real Ross Perot part of the IMF?
But from this movie forward, they just faked it every single time.
Yeah.
We used to get movies like this where a big part of it was we're going to have to use this makeup. Mrs. Doubtfire, the FX movies, to actually convince somebody that someone is somebody else. And then they rip off a realistic mask. And we're never going to get those again, probably.
You know what's weird is that at some point Tom Cruise rewatched this movie and the channel scene and was like, I should have been actually on that helicopter. That
Yeah.
should have been me for reals doing that. And he's still alive.
That is all the time we have right now. We're going to take the quiz breaks. When we come back, something a little different. Trivia. Taste buds, the game is trivia, and the rules are simple, but the game is oh so hard. I will ask a question. When I am done, and only when I am done, you will ring in with your name, and you get to answer. If you get it wrong, your opponent gets to scoop. And normally that's it, but sometimes I'll be like, I don't know, go back and forth until you get it right.
Yeah.
It's up to me.
The rules get a little fast and loose sometimes.
It's like I said, the rules are hard. Any questions before
Ryan.
we dive in? Ryan, yes?
No.
Okay. Thank you for your due diligence. Question the first. Which character from the original series is in this movie?
Greg.
Greg?
Jim Phelps, the one that John Voight plays.
Correctamundo.
Yeah,
Hell yeah.
I mean, Greg is the world's biggest John Voight fan, so that seems a little unfair.
That's a half truth. I'm just a fan of his personal life.
Just love his politics and ideas. And his accents he does in certain movies.
Or in certain scenes.
I learned this week that Ethan Hunt was not an original character from the show. Like he's...
I literally have never seen a second of it. Like I thought he was
think
original.
anybody has.
Yeah.
What did the original cast of the show think of the movie?
Ryan,
Not
fans, because they shit on the whole old school.
Yeah, right? I mean, the whole point of the movie is like, this guy is the bad guy now. He's so awful.
Did they ask Peter Graves, I wonder? And he turned it down because of the original
Yes,
Jim Phelps?
they did.
They did?
And he said, no, I'm not doing that. And then, but each actor of like the cast of 5 or 6 hated it for different specific reasons, which is a lot of fun.
Remember how upset people were when Luke Skywalker just turned out to be like kind of a shitty failure of an old man? Imagine if
Yeah.
he like had become Darth Vader. Because Jim Phelps in this is extremely evil. He's not just like kind of bad. He's like a psychopath.
But that's the whole point of like putting spies out into the cold. They always warp because they don't know who to trust. So eventually they're like, I'll trust me and money. Fuck everything.
Yeah.
That is every spy story ever. We shouldn't have spies because this happens.
My theory, though, is that that's not how the script went. It was just John Voight saying his actual thoughts. And they just had to make him evil.
There's an ad lib by John Voight in my head, Ken.
I think we all know.
Before De Palma, who was going to direct this movie?
Ryan. Steven Soderbergh.
No.
Greg. J.J. Abrams.
I think he was in diapers.
Ryan.
Yeah, he was like 19.
Ryan?
Let's go with Steven Spielberg.
Greg? One more shot.
Greg, let's go with John Woo.
No. Steven Spielberg is connected to why De Palma did direct it because a little fella named Sidney Pollack was going to direct it. And then Tom Cruise went to dinner Steven Spielberg had and met this weirdo De Palma. Did not like his directing style, but they hit it off so much at dinner that he went, Pollack's out. Brian, you're directing this now.
Wow, that must have been awkward during Eyes Wide Shut.
Also, Sidney Pollack, director of Movie of the Year candidate 3 Days of the Condor. So that
spy movie.
That would make sense, yeah.
The spy movie with a little rape.
Who
The spy
composed
movie,
the
the
film's
Shag movie.
updated version of the Mission Impossible theme?
Ryan. Santa Man's best friend, Elfman.
You made me wipe out laugh. Double points.
And they quadruple dip on that. Like they keep bringing that back.
Well, if you paid for him to do it. He's ripped. He's going to rip something apart if you don't use his music more.
Man, keep a shirt on, Danny.
What is the signature phrase used by IMF agents to indicate their mission choice?
Greg.
I
accept.
Well, I guess, confusingly worded. My bad. What does the tape say to them?
Ryan.
Wait,
hold on. It's accept this or don't. We'll explode
we
soon.
Don't care. There's no skin off our sack.
I'm going to, you know what? I'll give it to both of you because I worded that weird. It's should you choose to accept.
A phrase that you used at the beginning of the last segment. Bummer.
Do we actually think they have a choice in accepting these missions?
Ryan.
Greg?
Yeah, that's the whole premise of the thing is that they have right of refusal on the missions that they do.
But given the little we know about IMF, somebody just comes and shoots them in the back of the head when they say, no, I'm not going to do that, right?
And sometimes when they say yes.
They make a bit in Dead Reckoning. They make a big deal. They do that thing where they're like, "Wait, what does IMF stand for?" That's ridiculous. And they make a big thing where they're like, "And you let them choose whether or not they do the missions." And in fact, there's another one, the one with like the old agent, Fallout, I think. And he's like, "You get to accept or not, and you always just accept, don't you? Like you always just do what they say, even though the whole idea is supposed to be that you're allowed to not do it."
Again. They will be the villains of whatever movie is next. Like, just do what they say.
Where did Mike last watch Mission Impossible before this week?
Ryan.
Huntington
Beach Pierside Theaters in Huntington Beach, California.
Greg. While doing translating for the Army.
No, but you guys were revealing my personal identity.
Yeah.
Facts to listeners.
Sorry to dox you.
No, it was in Prague. I was in Prague.
Oh, because you did that thing where when you traveled around the world, you watched a movie about the city. You know, I always secretly thought that was very cool.
Thank you.
Wow. Way to have the bravery to tell him now.
Where is Prague?
Ryan. Czechoslovakia?
I mean, I think at one point it was called that.
Greg.
The
Czech Republic.
It is the Czech Republic.
Oh, which is my hockey nickname.
What is the name of the famous medieval bridge that spans the Vltava River in Prague?
Ryan. Fergie.
Greg.
Peter.
And now I will give you the 4 multiple choices. Is it the Charles Bridge, the St. George Bridge, the St. Vitus Bridge, or the King Winklevoss Bridge?
Greg.
King
Winklevoss. The one you definitely made up.
I'll go with C.
No, it's the Charles Bridge. It's the most normal of them all. That's how they get you.
I said it was Steve, and it was slightly different than that.
Name any other movie Mike watched on his 100 Days of Cinema Around the World trip.
Ryan. Alice in the Cities.
Greg.
In
Bruges.
You're both getting points. Fuck it, keep going. Well, I'll give a point for each movie.
Don't Look Now.
He's clearly only seen that once. It kept it from being movie of the year.
Oh, yeah, he hated that one, huh?
Wait, which ones Don't Look Now?
Exactly.
The one in Venice.
Don't watch at all is what I think you called it.
Oh, that one. No, I haven't been to Venice. The other movies are Eurotrip, Ali, Fear Eats the Soul, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Ratatouille, The Last Jedi, The Brothers Broom, Johnny Stecchio, La Dolce Vita, and Kong Skull Island.
Is Ratatouille why you got so scared that you were going to get Ratatouille'd?
Yeah. That's why I saw it and I was in Paris. I'm like, get these fucking people off of me.
You know who was afraid of getting Ratatouille? Jean Reno, when that rat comes scuttling down.
Oh, yeah.
I know I say this all the time, but whenever there's supposed to be a disgusting rat in a movie, what they have are these Hollywood rats, which are these really cute, really healthy looking little guys. And then he gets so spooked by this cute little fella that he nearly drops our hero.
He doesn't know about the real ones, which are like half possum, half baboon.
Oh yeah, the ones like where they hardly they have like one half of one ear, and they're like warriors,
they've seen
and they will
shit.
seriously
Smoking
like fight
cigarettes.
you. Yeah, dude, there's some rats that like I would never engage with because they've just seen some shit.
I'll train 4 turtles just to fuck them up.
What scene was incredibly dangerous in real life and kicked off Cruise trying to kill himself via stunts?
Ryan.
It's
got to be Langley, man. It's got to be
Getting dropped like that.
Yeah, just eating shit all the time.
Greg.
No. Greg.
Channel scene.
No. It was, they shot the aquarium with a stuntman, and De Palma said, nope, it looks dumb. Cruise, you got to do this. And so that's when he's jumping
almost
over
trips over
the extra,
Yeah.
all of that, yeah. So it is jumping through the real fake glass. All that water is rushing. Like, they were very nervous.
I love how they slow-mo when he's jumping out the window. That way you can see Tom Cruise going, fuck, 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 fuck.
I love how that happens in the movie, and you're like, this is probably the biggest thing that's going to happen in this movie.
Which star of a former Moody entry premiered his opera Don Giovanni in Prague in 1787?
Ryan.
It
Amadeus?
was Rock Me Amadeus himself.
Rock me.
Good old Rock Me.
Hey,
Rock me, Balboa.
Mama Rock Me, I think Amadeus said. Who did Mike see in Rome in July 2023?
Ryan. I'm going to say, because I know that your eating habits, I'm going to say it was Little Caesar.
Greg.
Guy
Fieri.
No.
Greg.
I'm not responding
Neutral Milk Hotel.
It was Tom Cruise. He was there for Dead Reckoning premiere.
Wow.
Me and my wife were shit-faced on those famous steps, saw a bunch of people freaking out, so we drunkenly ran up those famous steps, and Tom Cruise was going to his hotel and looking very much like he didn't want anybody to look at him.
The Spanish Steps?
Yes.
If I could sum up Mike and his wife in a quick story, it's that they are often saying, what are those famous steps? Let's get shit-faced.
Man, you know who fucking loves stairs? De Palma. Man, there is one shot inside like the party where the area that everyone's hanging out is like there's 2 staircases up, 2 staircases down, and then one middle staircase. It's all fucking stairs.
It's stairs all the way down. That is all the time we have for trivia. I've been your host, Mike. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll be your host, Mike, and more Mission Impossible. Taste buds, between this, and by this I mean Mission Impossible, and Jerry Maguire, 1996 was Tom Cruise's peak before he fucked off to the UK for 3 years to get absolutely pantsed and cucked by Stanley Kubrick, and things would never be the same. Is this an all-time Tom Cruise performance, and do we see a difference between pre-Kubrick and post-Kubrick Cruise?
I think that that whole like, I don't know how to put this better than I'm sitting at a table, everybody's laughing at me, and then somebody walks by and I just put my hand up and I get a high five. That whole like sort of loud laugh kind of cockiness is definitely here from Cocktail, Rain Man, all the way up to that. And then I think that he's trying
A Few
things.
Good Men.
Yeah, we're just high fives all day in court. But I think that Few Good Men as a performance is definitely stronger and more confident than this, and Jerry Maguire, which we'll talk about later in the season. This to me is all over the place. I think this is not a good performance.
As an actor.
As an
he's all
actor,
over the
yeah.
place.
Do you think it's supposed to be all over the place though? That's part of what this movie does is when you start to judge an element of it harshly,
You
you're
might feel
like,
dumb.
Wait, am I missing it? Because I feel like part of what the movie is asserting is that Ethan doesn't have much of a center.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we're invited to think that the group at the beginning is like his family. And so losing them is like the worst thing that could happen to him.
And we do see that more than in a normal spy movie. When they die, he's like,
Yeah.
it's not just that the
He
mission
freezes.
went upside. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think from that point forward, I think the character is not sure how he's supposed to be with anybody anymore. He's also like he has to step up into that Jim Phelps role. He has to be, he's like the wonder kid at the beginning of it, and he has no responsibilities, and so he's like cracking wise and everything. And then he has to like become the guy. So it's not that I disagree. I don't disagree with you because it is all over the place. I found myself wondering a lot. Like, is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be because like he's lying to everybody? Like one thing is like he suspects Claire very early on, and you can see that he suspects her very early on before he puts all the pieces together. And so,
Well, she wants to have sex with him, and that's not what happens in a Tom Cruise movie.
With a monotooth? Who would do that?
I mean, even the way she comes in, he's like kind of falling asleep. She seems like Jim when she first comes in because he's like half awake, half asleep. She comes in on the broken glass, so he like hears her. She comes in the way he thinks that his enemy's going to come in. He points the gun at her. Then he decides she's not bad, but he can't decide. They have a weird like sexual, like he like pats her down looking for, and is like really harsh with her, and it's like very sexual at the same time. And so I guess we're saying the same thing, but I wonder if the movie like wants him to be all over the place.
Okay, I do like that's the most relatable part. I think for most of Mission Impossible's audience is you're a babe, you seem to like want me. What's your agenda? Like what? Like what's up with you? Why are you bad? But I just think I would say that this is like sort of Tom Cruise's puberty that goes away by Jerry Maguire, and so like and that's months away, but. I think that he's trying out a lot of things here that I don't think are successful, even if we consider the De Palma thing. I think when he's angry or sad or any emotion that is sort of outside of the realm of Pete Mitchell, it goes a little wonky. And keep in mind that like we are 3 years away, not just from Eyes Wide Shut, but also Magnolia.
Yeah,
like, I would say his
right.
two best in the classic, like not star, but acting performance, best performances are coming in 1999, and I think this is getting all of his prepubescent I am a star and star alone out, and then we get those two performances.
So it's because he basically just rides on probably being the cocky guy from his 80s movies and early 90s. He just is charming and cocky, and is Tommy C. He's trying to learn how to act. He kind of acts for a couple years, and then he just becomes movie star Tom Cruise for the rest of his career.
And like, I do think it's important to note, or no, this is absolutely not important to note, but let's just say it. I want to say, after he broke up with Spielberg, right? Because like there was, I guess, tension on War of the Worlds. So we're talking like 2005. Between 2005 and 2024, if he was not Ethan Hunt or Pete Mitchell, it was not a hit. There were no hits for 20...
Not even Edge of Tomorrow?
No, I mean, that's a notorious flop. It's a great movie.
It's a good movie,
but I love it.
but not a hit.
I love it, which means it had to do well.
Shit. No, never mind.
And that might be the one time he's like acting again. Like he's playing with the Tom Cruise
Do you think
role.
with that movie, if they had to go back and do it again, they would have made a change, Ryan? Huh? Check out the movie, everybody. I think what you'll find is that it's a pretty clever joke. It did
great.
stop the podcast dead in its tracks, but I think it was still worth saying.
Where did Mike go? He just left him.
Did we ever do a Tom Cruise career retrospective, and is it even possible? Is there like too much there to do?
I mean,
did we?
If we haven't, we should, because I think maybe we did with Rain Man.
I was gonna say Rain Man. We might have.
Okay.
And I
But
think
if we forgot, so did the audience. We should do it again.
I think that Rain Man is another fascinating entry in that. So in a movie that I think he's much better in. And I think that in our Rain Man episode, we were just like, Dustin Hoffman, Schmustin, Schmoffman. Like, it's Tom Cruise owns this movie. But that was another, like, I think that was much more of a home run. bigger swing, bigger home run than this, where he's trying to, I think, show that he's not Arnold and he's not Bruce Willis, but it's not always going to be like classic Tom Cruise. And I think that now, I mean, I do think that Ethan Hunt is much less of a character, much less of a personality throughout the series. You know, he becomes just this like cipher for action hero.
Him not knowing, and I mean, I guess this is similar to a lot of action movies that break the mold for a while. Die Hard, McClane just becomes an action hero, but what makes him is his humanity in that first one. Him not
and
knowing
it's a
what
Christmas
to do,
movie.
And it's a Christmas. So is Mission Impossible. More of a Boxing Day movie. But I think him not being sure how to lead a team or how to be the best head spy is part of what's so interesting about it.
I mean, I remember when I was thinking about this movie, I was like, they form a whole new team. They go get Ving Rhames, who, God bless him, was in every movie after that because people need paychecks.
He was, and this is the best he is in any of them.
Yeah.
Like, the more he was in these movies, Ving Rhames, the less he understood about acting. This is still a performance. By the time, like, by the most recent ones, he's just like, I don't know, everybody. I just showed up and I'm saying the words on the page.
But the other guy Ethan went to get for his team was Jean Reno, who was a villain. Like, just not good HR skills.
Well, that's because Emmanuel
Claire does it, yeah.
Emmanuel Claire.
Yeah,
Claire,
it's interesting.
She's the one.
Palma,
she's even like, hey, man, I'm sorry I pulled this asshole who's probably a villain.
Dude.
Probably only has this one knife and uses it a lot.
Layers and layers and layers.
So many layers. Because he's just then putting together, when she says that, he's just realizing, holy shit, Jim is behind all of this. And the audience is like kind of seeing that he's doing that, but maybe not totally aware. And then she suddenly says, I'm sorry, Ethan. And he looks at her, and for a second it's like, oh shit, no, she's saying she's in on it. She's sorry for this, but she's actually saying she's sorry for Jean Reno. But he is in on the plot. He is the bad guy.
This is an impossible mission. The two scenes that I will enter for discussion are the aforementioned talking to John Voight and saying one thing but thinking another, thanks to the power of editing.
Yes.
Great job, films. Movies, you did it again.
Films.
But also, I don't know if this is more Ethan Hunt or Tom Cruise, but the Jean Reno wants the knock list, and he just becomes Tom Cruise, guy from Magnolia, guy from Eyes Wide Shut, Charlie Chaplin, like Barnum Bailey Circus, like his
Tom Cruise Mind Freak.
Yeah, dude.
His whole sleight of hand
Magic Cruise.
That is the guy from every like Cocktail, Top Gun, Collateral, War of the Worlds, Edge of Tomorrow. That's our guy.
Yes.
That is our guy in that scene.
And
because I think that's the one time Ethan Hunt is reading his antagonist. He has all the knowledge. He's like, oh, this guy's a prick, so I can do whatever I want to him.
And I'm the ultimate poker player. And then but this is I always love when the camera lingers too long, and then he goes up to Ving Rhames and says, was that the knock list? And you could see Tom Cruise like sigh, like be relieved.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot believe that shit fucking worked.
And you know what's interesting? He doesn't reveal that until Claire has left the room. Mm-hmm. He doesn't go over as soon as Jean Reno leaves and pick it back up. He waits until she's gone as well. He decides at some point, and he says why. Ving Rhames is like, why do you trust me? And he's like, because you didn't know what this was. And you never would have done it if you
You're
did.
just crazy enough to...
But he's lucky that turned out to be okay, because he trusts this guy really hard.
Well, there's another reason, I think. How does Ving Rhames talk? How does Claire and Jean Reno talk?
Oh, no accent?
USA.
Yeah, it's definitely USA.
I love the counter choice to make Ving Rhames your hacker. Before this, it'd be your Giovanni Ribisi's. It'd be like your squirrely.
Your
little
Emilio
pale guy.
Estevez.
And
your
but it'd be like
Matthew
very tiny, very
Lillard,
dorky.
your daughters of John Voight, your
Nerds.
Sandra
Johnny
Bullock.
Lee Miller.
And Ving Rhames so slowly henpecking and being like hack.com/hack right now.
Oh,
I loved it. And that's when you're like, kids won't get it. You're like, oh, you're making fun of movies. Like,
See,
his secret though is not that he knows how to use the internet. He's just always sitting in the seat catty corner to the person on the computer and like watching their screen.
Computers were not featured heavily in movies before this time. Do you notice they never say email? They just say, like, we got a message on the computer.
Yeah. Because nobody would know what email is.
Yeah, it's too early for that.
I mean, a big plot point in the beginning of the underrated rom-com, You've Got Mail, is they have to explain what email is
Yes.
and why email is so magical.
Remember when they sit down at Email Land and they go on that ride where John Hammond explains?
see.
Yeah, I don't remember when he actually got the email. Was he just guessing at like bob@bob.com in the beginning and hoping
He sends emails out to everybody that
might have
has Job
Job,
adjacent Usenet accounts.
Job is a much more famous character than Bob in the Bible, right?
That movie invites those scenes invite you not to do a ton of thinking. When the movie obviously has to get him in contact with Max. And the problem is Max is notoriously hard to get in contact with. And the leaps he makes suddenly looking up and seeing the Bible, and the Bible is the one that, like, you can't get a Bible anywhere, right?
Uh-huh.
So Jim Phelps has to steal it from the Chicago.
The
like,
Gideon,
They're hard to get.
those fucking Gideons.
Those freaking
And
Gideons.
then Max, who is so hard to get a hold of, once they're on the phone and the train is all good, she wants to bone. She's never seen Ethan Hunt. Like she wants to bone down hard.
Everybody all the women that interact with Ethan Hunt want to bang him so bad. And do you know, Ryan, that as the series goes on, Max is Vanessa Kirby's mom in the movies,
and also sister to Jason Statham from Fast and the Furious.
Yes,
This guys, this goes
It's all
deep.
connected.
I do like real quick though, and this is I don't know if this is a Tom Cruise thing or I can definitely see it as a Brian De Palma plan thing. Like let's subvert, like let's stick to the genre when we want and subvert, but like the lack of sex that we talked about. And like the closest that we ever get to sex is Tom Cruise's smile with older ladies. Like that's the case in so many movies.
There's no sex, but it is weirdly horny.
And then guns. Like I don't know if anybody gets shot in the entire movie.
You hear pew pew.
And that's just Tom
when
Cruise.
they're in Prague, but that's actually Jim shooting
Oh,
into
yeah.
the river before he puts fake blood in front of his glasses.
which-
Goes, Ethan.
Goes back to Greg's long ago point about the corniness of TV. Because Ethan's watching it on his little watch, and the John Boyd's like, "Oh my god,
Look at all this blood! It's my own blood."
Did you see my blood
dang.
everywhere?"
Hang on. You know who gets shot? Claire does get shot,
She
and
does.
that's a kind of a disturbing part of the movie because Jim is like, "Well, this is my last chance to murder my wife," and he goes for it. Like he's like, "Got a jet."
That is true, but I do think that there was a concerted point to, and it might be an anti-Bond thing to not have sex and violence when there is in this line of work probably very little sex and violence.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the series, except for two gets a little like weirdly sexual, I think.
Fraggle Naggle.
But the series kind of keeps it up, and the Dead Reckoning, there's a lot of very beautiful women, but they're all wearing like very nicely tailored suits, and they look stunning. But it's not like weird clingy dresses or anything like that.
It's not Megan Fox over a motorcycle.
No.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's not
Transformers
good?
style.
We are clearly tapped out on talking about Tom Cruise's acting, so we are going to take the quickest of breaks. And when we come back, play a little game. Now is the time for Genre Blast, which is a segment where we like to turn our attentions on the lesser appreciated genres that are never going to make it into the Sweet 16. So they get their own little baby safe bracket to be in. This is their safe space.
It's the welfare state, basically.
It's the welfare state. The last time we did it, we did comedy and family. So those are off the table. Let's not do those again. So, today, your choices are action, romance, sci-fi, and horror. Greg.
Family.
No!
Guys, server ever come up to you at a restaurant or a table and they're like, but we're all out of shrimp, and then you just fucking order that shrimp just to see that look on their face.
Just to see what he says. Just to see what he says. I'm going to go with science fiction.
Double
Which I-
feature?
Talk
In
about
this
kids not-
country, all science is fiction nowadays, huh? Politics.
I'm with RFK. Talk about kids not getting camp. I watched Rocky Horror when I was about 5, which might explain a lot about me. I was horrified. The whole time I was like, there's so many things I know I shouldn't be seeing right now. But I certainly didn't understand how campy it was.
But didn't you come out of that movie just as a little guy being like, gender is a construct?
Yeah,
We're all
but it
a little
freaked me
gay.
out.
It freaks me out, man.
It wasn't until I was 15, again too young, and went to the live show and went, gender's a construct, baby, and I love it.
I have to, man. The new Kendrick, he's got a song where he goes, and I'm loving it, and I would listen to 10 hours of him saying, and I'm loving it, just like that, over and over again.
Aren't you a little sad nobody, his hype guys, don't go ba 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 ba?
It's hard to do the pre.
Yeah.
Hype.
Pre-hype. If you have a bad case of pre-hype, Hims does have a pill for that.
Sorry, babe, I got hyped so quick.
Okay, we are doing sci-fi.
It'll take your wife a little bit longer to get hyped. Let's face it. It does take the ladies a little bit longer to get hyped.
We're just genetically, and I know science is a fiction now, as Greg stated,
Yes.
genetically men hype quicker.
Yes.
And that's
Man.
it's why we have more fun in life.
Yeah, dude. We get stoked quickly.
Plus, I mean, there's that thing as you get older of like, oh, you know what would be fun as a little, secret or a little surprise is just to not get her hyped at all. And then when you do that every time, things don't work.
I don't know what we're talking about anymore. Round one, battle one is your number 1 seed, Space Jam, versus your number 8 seed, Phenomenon.
Da, 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 da.
Oh, wow. Phenomenon, the movie that like halfway through you're like, is this Scientology? And yes, friends, it is Scientology. They made it. They tricked us into watching a Scientology movie.
Does sci-fi not stand for Scientology? Vientology.
I think it does. And is Phenomenon, is that not the albino dude?
That's Powder.
That's Powder.
You
That's
racist
Powder.
piece of shit.
He has lightning powers, I believe.
Yeah, dude.
Lightning powders.
Yeah.
Which one's Phenomenon?
John
John
Travolta
Travolta.
takes the pill. Give me that pill, and he becomes limitless.
Yeah.
Oh, not Michael? Was Michael this year too?
Michael was
That's
this year,
the
yes.
angel one. With
Yeah.
Annie McDowell, Margaret Qualley's mother.
Okay.
Space Jam.
Fucking thank you.
I think
Ryan?
that sci-fi fans in 1996 were super stoked about the genre when the first battle is Space Jam versus
Hell
Phenomenon.
yeah, dude. Hell yeah.
I'm voting right now.
Great
Yes.
sci-fi movie, Space Jam.
These are two awful movies. Even the number 1 seed does not deserve to be in the bracket. But because of iconicism, I'm going to go with Space Jam.
Versus a forgotten movie
That again
that I
is,
thought was Powder.
and is like a tract for Scientology
What isn't?
at a
Your number
Hollywood nowadays.
Your number 4 seed, Barbed Wire, versus your number 5 seed, The Island. Wait, of Dr. Moreau.
Oh, man.
Marlon Brando, Ryan.
Who the fuck picked sci-fi?
I did. Sorry.
God damn it, Greg.
This was a bad time for sci-fi, right? Like they didn't.
Yeah.
No, they didn't give money to anything.
Or they're all in our Sweet 16, but like I can't. Mars Attacks, and I can't really think of anything else.
Independence
ID4.
Day.
Oh, okay, yeah. But Mars Attacks was bad.
And probably closer to comedy. I don't know which. Anyway,
Yeah.
Barbed Wire. I think Dr. Moreau it's such a bad movie.
I'll
Is
go
it?
Barbed Wire. Why not? I would watch the opening to Barbed Wire right now. And I can't
Bold.
say the same thing about the Island of Dr. Moreau. I do feel bad. I do feel like that movie kind of ruined her life, though. Or helped
That movie, I think,
hasten the pace of that.
Was it a different
marrying
movie,
Tommy
Mike?
Lee. No, the movie of her life called Tommy Lee. Oh yeah, Tommy Lee in Paris, I think was the name of that movie. Your next battle is Escape from L.A. We're all trying to versus Chain Reaction, which is a Keanu Reeves Morgan Freeman joint.
Oh my
that I did
gosh.
not know existed.
Are they trying to like make fusion?
No, they did. Yeah,
Oh, they
they
did.
invent.
So they made it, Ryan.
Yeah, well, that's important. They invent cold fusion, and so then the oil companies come and try to kill them.
I don't know what the sci-fi part of that is. I guess because cold fusion.
Well, because the oil companies aren't going to come to your house and kill you. They're going to poison the air and very slowly kill you.
Yes, but that's just fiction.
that's just a fiction book.
It's a Grisham.
I have to say, obviously, Escape from L.A. is maybe 1/20th the movie Escape from New York is, but it's got a lot of surfing.
CGI
in it.
surfing, yeah.
It's got some basketball. Remember, he has to make like every type of basketball shot. It's got the
Every
creepy,
type?
It's got the creepy plastic surgeon that looks exactly like one-time Congressman Matt Gaetz.
The
yeah,
Wilson
Escape
feature
from LA.
Congressman. Escape from LA moves on. If it's a movie we've heard of versus a movie one of us
not
has,
really.
Greg, you did know a lot about it, which surprised me.
Yeah, well, but again, I was in high school at this time, so I was trying to see every movie that came out. That was bad.
Who Wants to Be Home? Star Trek First Contact versus Tremors 2 Aftershocks.
Now, I feel like this is the first sci-fi movie that we've heard, and so I do think we should give Tremors 2 the credit it deserves.
This is one of the better Star Trek movies. It's a very fun continuation of the Next Generation experience. You get to see a lot of the Borg.
And there's time travel, the Borg and the Romulans, and now we're like in San Francisco?
Yeah, they go back into the past.
Yeah.
And the Borg go into the past, and so then the Enterprise goes into the past.
I loved this movie, which doesn't say a lot because I loved all the Star Trek back then. But this is the kind of movie that De Palma was lampooning and saying, oh, you think this is going to be a TV show on screen? That's kind of what the Star Trek movies of this era were.
It really is. It's directed by Jonathan Frakes, who played Riker and directed a bunch of the episodes of the television show. And you expect it to be like a movie, and it is 90 minutes of very much a TV show. Like, he does not know how to direct a movie.
Is Jonathan Frakes the guy on that one show who's like, do you want to know what this is about?
Yes.
You can't, you piece of shit.
Yeah,
like,
he rides up on his bike and goes, wrong. There's that Uber clip.
Did you think El Chupacabra was real? You're wrong. You couldn't be more wrong.
I love a 6-second episode.
I didn't even say
We
anything,
made that
Will.
up.
I know it sounds crazy because Star Trek is such a big deal now, but like, do you guys ever think about how weird it is that like a syndicated TV show got multiple movies with those characters? Like that was never a primetime or big hit show.
Yeah.
You know? And I know it has the Star Trek name, but like Patrick Stewart as a syndicated TV show character was the star of multiple movies. That is pretty crazy.
You know what it is? It's because it's a Paramount property. Like, they tried to make Mission Impossible movies for a long time. Why?
Right.
Why would you even try to do that?
They don't have to pay for IP.
We own Mission
yeah.
Impossible. So it's
Right.
the same thing with Star Trek. Why would you put 3 episodes of your show on the big screen?
It's the same thing
because we have it. It's our property.
With Space Jam 2, where you can have the Droogs and Scooby-Doo hanging out in the background.
The Scooby
Finally.
Droogs? It's
The
also
servers.
that what doesn't exist anymore, like now there's only art house movies or blockbusters, like the mid-level adult movie, which is not like boobs
Star
and
Trek
bush.
First Contact.
Yeah, like it wasn't that expensive to make, and they will make so much money on it because my stepdad will take our whole family to that, definitely.
Yeah. See, that's one of those movies where it's like you can understand it when you think of it as a business pitch. We've got the sets, we've got the costumes, we can do so much of this already. We just zhuzh it up with a little extra money, and we've turned a TV show into a movie.
And people just went to the movies as a habit. Like, as of this
Right.
recording, very recently, Wicked, Gladiator 2, and Moana 2 were all in theaters, and everybody was like, oh, movies are back. No, because for the next, for 6 months after that, there will be nobody at the theater. Like,
Right.
that was a nice, but like,
They're trying to just release them at the same time now, right? To get a little bit of that Barbenheimer
I think
energy?
so. But like back then, the movie theaters were packed because there was Star Trek First Contact and like Kiss the Girls with Morgan Freeman and Ashley Judd. And that's all they had, and everybody went to see them.
And we were there, and we were happy. And our stepdad's backpacks were filled with pre-popped popcorn that was certainly not warm anymore.
Stepdads, fucking stop. Stop with the douchiness.
Does anybody want to say anything about Tremors 2: Aftershocks?
I don't. I don't want to say that.
I think anytime Mike says Aftershocks, that's a drop that we should make later.
Did he just have it in the backpack, or was it like in a bag in the backpack?
It was just loose in the bag. Oh, that's a
Like,
water
you
bottle from the last time you
Dig
cycled.
around in there?
No, it wasn't a bag, but yeah, he had like a camping JanSport. It was heavy duty. It had structure to it. And he would fill that shit.
And you're just daring some teen to say something like the fact that you've brought your backpack to the movie.
Or you spilt baked beans everywhere. I just the amount of effort to save $8 on popcorn. Like you will spend 3 or 4 hours of planning.
In the 90s, that $8 was 75 cents. It was not expensive.
That was your mortgage.
Next up is Space Jam versus Barbed Wire. Oh, for the first tough battle, folks.
Space Jam's kind of bad. It's obviously, but it's iconic, and it was like a big movie from our childhoods.
And I mean, like, you have to say without a doubt that it has to be Space Jam because Space Jelly don't shake like that.
Yeah.
And so I will have to go with Space Jam.
And I think
You
we all
do?
remember the attractive female? Lula Bunny?
Lola Bunny.
Lola
Don't you said her name wrong to try to be like you're not
Oh,
obsessed.
what is it? Lula Booney? I can't remember.
I'm not comfortable with it being Lola Bunny. Let's move on.
LOLA?
It's short for Lolita Bunny for sure.
Right? Yeah, that's not good.
Escape from LA versus Star Trek First Contact.
Star Trek First Contact. Let's get it. Let's go.
I think we're all trying to escape from LOLA, so let's say Star Trek.
And we all knew it was coming to this. Space Jam versus Star Trek First Contact.
One features a team of absolute all-stars. The other is Space Jam.
Do it, dude.
Come
I knew you were going to do it.
It's gotta be Star Trek First Contact.
I will, for the first time in Movie of the Year history, not protest a Star Trek thing moving on in a bracket.
I would love... No, we have. We did Wrath of Khan. I was going to say I would love for once for us to do a Star Trek thing. But I meant from the era I care about. I don't care about Wrath of Khan.
Yeah,
All
it
right.
was not like it didn't have that same connection.
No,
Next Generation did to us.
I just never watched the old shit. Except for Generations, when they all met. And that's fun no matter what. Ryan, this is your choice for action, romance, or horror.
Oof. I think we have to go romance here.
We must
You are making me
go
blush, sir.
to romance. And when you're thinking of a romantic movie, what do you want in your romance?
I typically I want a dude. He's a spy. A girl married to John Voight. They're going at it, but they never actually do anything.
And
But
isn't that so
the
much
whole
hotter?
time, John Voight's like, I think you should go for it, man. I think you should do this. Come on. Don't tell her that I'm still around, but you know, she's got to do what she's got to do.
John Voight's always like, I
He
smelled
brought
your
that up out
wares.
of nowhere.
Yeah, I know. I did not realize that like John Voight was actually like how much he was like forecasting what was coming in the future.
Your number one seed is Romeo and Juliet. Possibly the movie we get the most screeching emails. And I know they're toneless because it's email. We can tell you're screeching.
Yeah.
Romeo and Juliet. I didn't finish. The screeching emails that is not in that real bracket versus Lone Star.
Oh wow, and that you're personally,
My pick.
yeah, Lone Star is
The one
for
we
you.
should be getting the screeching emails or, of course, screamails about. But it's hard to argue against Romeo. I don't remember any romance in Lone Star. But Romeo plus Juliet equals romance.
It's not that we didn't like want to kick this out. This was heartbreaking for us. I mean, a real tragedy. I kept hoping it would end differently, but
Yeah, instead we had to do Mars Attacks and Hunchback.
Look, brackets are cruel mistresses.
they really are.
And every season, Ryan says, can we just, I know we do a bracket, and I know I'm the biggest proponent of brackets, but can't we just fuck with this? And we go, no, Ryan.
A lot of
We're
people
not
have asked
beasts.
us, do you want to do your show in a smart way? And we said no. The brackets are what we like.
We want to do it in a bracketed way. It is our God and we worship it. And as all worshipers, we're not smart. The English Patient versus the Nutty Professor.
Okay. Also, I think unfairly kicked out of the bracket. I could see both of those being
Nutty
in there.
Professor, yeah.
I guess English Patient is more romantic.
Probably. That is an epic romance. I mean, I think that... Yeah, I think we got to go English Patient.
The Nutty Professor becomes, I believe his character is something akin to Buddy Love. So that's pretty romantic.
Well, if you look at his last name, and then also I love my buddies, and that is romantic. So Buddy Love is what maybe the show could be called.
That's true.
Getting a facelift.
But-
Next up is...
English Patient has Ray Fine. So what are we going to do?
Oh, English Patient moved on.
Yeah.
You guys kept talking. I moved it on. The Watermelon Woman versus Big Night.
Watermelon Woman harkens to a title that makes me nervous.
Yeah.
I've never heard of this movie. Big Night is a romance with food, much like my favorite film, American Pie. I'll go Big Night.
Greg?
I will also go Big Night because I think it has Stanley Tucci in it.
It does.
Yeah, I'm there.
A Summer's Tale, the prequel to A Knight's Tale, versus Comrades Almost a Love Story. Guys, that's called Almost a Love Story in there.
What was the first one again?
A Summer's Tale.
I've not heard of either of these movies.
A Summer's Tale is a famous French director, I think.
Well, it's got my vote.
We're not doing good at this. Yeah, let's go Summer's Tale.
Yeah,
Well,
Summer's Tale.
The French are very romantic, and as we all know, it was directed, starring Melville V. Poupard, Eric Romer.
Eric Romer.
Romer, probably, because he's French. So we're going with The Summer's Tale and not the one that has a love story in its name? Okay.
Do you, I guess.
The cruelty once again hits because these should be our final two. Romeo and Juliet versus The English Patient.
I mean,
I gotta be true to me. Romeo and Juliet for sure.
Ray Fine is fine, but Leo.
You have to imagine, which is how I feel like I
Leo.
say everything when I'm talking about 1996. You have to imagine. I had just read Romeo and Juliet in high school, and there was going to be a movie, and it was going to have Claire Danes in it. This is a pretty good deal.
Welcome to Greg's so-called life.
Yeah,
that the show
exactly.
she was in? Was that
Yes.
accurate?
Yes,
Thank God.
sir.
It was Claire Danes and our favorite Joker. Yeah, Romeo and Juliet.
Big Night versus A Summer's Tale.
I'll go
Big
with
night.
here, yeah.
Big night.
We are Big Night bros. And so, of course, it was always going to come to this. Your romance finals is Romeo and Juliet versus A Big Night.
Keep saying "and," man, and it's a fucking plus, but that's fine. I think it's Romeo plus Juliet here.
Check my math on this one. If we made this movie today, it would be Romeo times Juliet. Wouldn't it be with the X? I feel like
X's are having a moment.
Yeah, even though the plus literally means and the X literally means something else.
I, though, would do Romeo semicolon and then end parentheses. So, like, we get that winky, like, this winky happy face is in the middle of these two.
Not to second guess. If you're Romeo, don't you wait a little bit to see if Juliet wakes up? Like, do you have to kill yourself right away? Because she actually wakes up a pretty short time after he stabs himself.
This is not a patient boy. He dropped Rosalind, and like the next party was like, wait, should I marry Juliet? Like, stop thinking with your little Romeo. Where art thou, Romeo?
Your guys' bits from the late 1600s episode of Def Comedy Jam are killing right now.
So our romance of 1996 is Romeo, math symbol, Juliet, and your sci-fi is Star Trek, probably First Contact.
I'm guessing.
Now he's nervous.
And that is Genre Blast. We're going to take the quickest breaks, and when we come back, more Mission Impossible. Taste buds, what is Mission Impossible's take on organizations and institutions? And is the movie at all concerned about the United States' treatment of its own citizens or its foreign policy?
It is. I think we are dealing with the fact that for like 30 years now, we have loved conspiratorial movies and tales. And Mission Impossible, I think, was a little bit ahead of its time in this regard. But it's definitely
Milestone.
Like, I feel like this type of love of conspiratorial thinking is imbued all throughout Mission Impossible. But it definitely seems like any organization in this world is eventually going to turn back on its individual members.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you are part of an institution that targets anybody, it will eventually target you. And I feel like that's all throughout this movie and then every subsequent Mission Impossible movie.
I totally agree. And also I think that, like, and it's so interesting, Mike, that you brought up Sidney Pollack in trivia, because I think that, not to make us all vomit, but like this movie is far closer to Watergate than it is to us today.
Yeah.
And
No!
I know we hate hearing that, but like this modern movie that came out in our lifetimes and we remember when it came out is closer to this ancient time that we had no idea about.
How about this? In Dead Reckoning, Tom Cruise is older than John Voight was in Mission Impossible.
Barf
Booyah.
City.
So, and like, I do think that one of the reasons that this is a milestone, and one of the reasons why I don't think Pollock would have been a good choice, is that it's John Voight's character saying, we are now moving on from this type of action movie thriller. It's time to like stop blaming this government
The other.
conspiracy thing. He has this speech in it that I think is so important for multiple reasons about how, like, you wake up one day, the Cold War's over, and now you're just a guy making $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
And he's like high up in the government. And I know it's $96, but dude, ask for a raise every once in a while. Although it's the Republicans that kept down the minimum wage of people out branches of the CIA, so it's ultimately his fault.
That's another such a genius moment of the movie, because Tom Cruise is asking him, why are you doing this? But in the guise of, why is Kitteridge doing this?
Right.
And then he's answering, here's why Kitteridge is doing this in the guise, or here's why I'm doing this in the guise of why Kitteridge is doing this. And then he even hits him with the stanky, like, and you hate your fucking wife?
Right.
Yeah.
Dude, that's you. You don't like your wife, and we
Yeah.
don't know why, but you should deal with that.
We've all
She seems pleasant and
Yes!
hot, so I
And
don't
she
understand.
goes along with your big machinations. Like, hasn't she done enough for you?
But we've all had that time where we're telling a story and it's very like relatable to everybody, and then you just give one extra detail. And everyone's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I'm not a part of this story anymore."
Also, his emotion. If he was being Kittredge, he would be like, "And you're making 62,000 goddamn like."
But yeah, he realized that he's a fossil and that it was time to think for himself, which I think is the movie sort of tried to say that all people do that given this job long enough, but all genres do this as well.
Right.
And so now we're mixing the 3 Days of the Condor with what will become the inevitable movie with Langley and the Channel. Like, that shit is not in 3 Days of the Condor, right? So this
Yeah.
is
Right.
this is the blend, this is the cross between Pollock and future Fast and the Furious movies.
Political thriller and action movie.
Exactly. And or even the Clancy movies that came before it, with Alec Baldwin or Harrison Ford. Now it's Tom Cruise, who is just different than those two actors, you know? And so this is the crossroads. This is like the start of the other circle of the Venn diagram or whatever. In the meantime, I think De Palma's doing the same thing. He's saying, and this is the corny shit that I had to get out before Mike cuts my mic off, is that De Palma's saying, like, you work for so long and then all of a sudden you have to like start making decisions for yourself, and like, all I'm making is this amount of money, and now I'm making a fucking remake of a 1962 TV show. Like, this is what my life has come to. And so I have to do something different. And for Voight, it's say weird things about his wife and treat her weird and, try to kill Ethan Hunt. And then for De Palma, it's like, all right, but then I'm going to do it my way. So I think that De Palma does relate to Jim Phelps more than anybody else in this movie.
He's the relic himself.
But I could also see him relate, probably more than one, relating to Ethan Hunt, being like, I was told it would all be a certain
Exactly.
way. And then other people are treating me this way.
Especially who are De Palma's best friends in the industry growing up? It's Spielberg, Lucas, Scorsese.
Uh-huh.
And now that we're hitting middle age, like, can't we see how, like, you had an active role in creating the world for a while, and people like asked what your interests were, and they've pointed things to you, and then we're right at the point where you can start seeing, like, oh wow, it's not directed at me anymore, and if I don't like it, it doesn't matter.
I mean,
And so, like, there is a way in which you feel like the world moves on from you, and you just don't have to be bitter about it. Like, you can be excited about be excited about the new world that's being born, but instead he's like, I'm cashing out. I mean, he goes as black-pilled as possible. He's like completely nihilistic about this. He's going
De
to kill
Palma or Jim?
Jim Phelps.
Okay.
He kills his whole little family unit basically because he just completely checks out of this.
I mean, I think we talked about this last in Repo Man, but we do talk about this all the time about how the world does seem set up for us, men of a certain age with a certain amount of nostalgia, where we're still getting regular Transformers and Ninja Turtle movies, and that makes it seem like the spotlight is on us. We get what we want, but like I think in the Repo Man episode, that's just so we get what we think we need on the surface level, distracting us from like ever having an existential...
It's a pacifier.
Right.
Yeah.
An existential crisis about how we are incapable of doing anything else for, like, this is it for the rest of our lives. And yeah, that's John Voight or Jim Phelps took that to the next level.
And those Ninja Turtle movies are directed at us, not at like the important segment of
Right.
like the pop.
Well, because they're all on TikToks.
Exactly.
Which suck and are dumb.
That's the
and
thing.
I don't get it.
That's the way in which the world has moved on, right? That like I thought it was going to be a different type of movie that the kids were into, or a different type of music.
Character.
But it's not. It's a completely different medium. And it's hard to be like, I don't care about that medium. I just don't. Like, I don't care about TikToks. And so necessarily the world has kind of moved on from my taste.
And again, to go back to like one of Greg's original points, I think you can see him doing that with TV and movies. Like, if you cared about TV, if you cared about the show, you're a tiny moron.
Yeah.
You know, it's now time to blow it up and make a movie, because I've never read a thing. And Mike, maybe you did this week in your research. But
I've never read
a thing about Brian De Palma's like deep need to make a Mission Impossible movie, or his love as a child. Like, I think he sees it as a title, an IP that will get him to do what he wants.
He was like, again, they met at a dinner and Cruise pitched him. Like, yeah, that's not a deep-seated love. This is not James Gunn being like, I just love this specific weird character.
I do think that it's also a product of its time. In like the 80s and 90s, if you adapted something, it was just a veneer on top of whatever you wanted to do. Lately, when we like adapt a book or like a comic book or a video game, now it's more like they try to find the essence of the thing itself, and they're more interested in exploring that essence than they are in making a movie. It used to be we would say, well, the adaptation first has to be a movie. Now it feels like when so much stuff is adapted, the first thing it has to be is an adaptation that like makes the fans of that original thing happy. And if they're not happy, they express themselves online and they get the thing physically changed.
And it's fun because it's eating itself, because they're making the Harry Potter shows now and castings and things are coming out. And instead of going back to the books, people are like, but that's different from the movie, so this is bunk. So burn everything down.
I will wait for the novelization of the TV show based on the movies, based on the books.
I'll wait for the junior novelization.
Yeah, I mean, you need those bigger words. But yeah, like there are so many 60s TV shows that were turned into movies that were clearly started by the studio. Like we were talking about, they already owned the IP. Mm-hmm. This was auteur first, you know, like, and I can see this movie being looked at far more as a combination of what De Palma and Cruise are capable of, as opposed to studio execs saying, we need this movie right now, which is much closer to like the Sergeant Bilko, the Mikhail. We were inundated in that time with these movies, and still are.
Can I say
one last
thing about its view of organizations? And that is, I think ultimately the movie feels like through Kitteridge, the organization is kind of redeemed. There are elements of the organization that are redeemed. Ving Rhames goes back to it. Ethan Hunt says he's not going to, but then he does. And we can tell he is going to in the end. But the last thing we see of Kitteridge is Max says to him, like, well, maybe we can work out a separate arrangement. And then it just cuts away from them. There's so many moments in this movie where when there is still a like very interesting rebuttal, or you would want to hang a little bit longer to see what else is happening there, De Palma just whisks you away. And it's like, wait, hold on. To just have that hanging out there, it's a big question. Like, what happens to Max? What happens to Kitteridge?
And that's I wish so many modern directors, or the people who are actually in charge these days, modern studio executives, would follow that.
Let there be a
people question things. Let them chew on it and debate and talk.
No, I think that the wrong decisions, like we were talking about earlier, the wrong lessons learned from this movie is that grab IP, have 2 set pieces, maybe 3, and then you're good. The right lessons are make them all different, and we'll pick and choose what we like and don't, but there's too much money on the line. I think that, like, as far as the politics go, I think that the bolder stance, and I think that honestly, like, our modern equivalent to Ethan Hunt from this first movie is Captain America, in that he's trying to prove the point that Ethan does what's right, even if it's against the government. And I think that like, for this hippie director, that's the wild thing that he's adding to this, potential franchise. And that's what we got from Civil War.
And I think the spirit of De Palma being that hippie, it feels like not brave but bold in the 90s, when we were all so up our own butts, sniffing our own farts, believing our own bullshit that America ruled. Right. This whole movie is like, the government will sell you out even if they don't have all the information. They don't care about you as an individual. They will break you and use you, and then barely apologize when they find out they're wrong.
Right. It's agency. And I know the whole thing is about an agency, but I'm saying if you work for the government and have agency, then you're fucked.
That sound does mean it's time for Speed Round. Jim Phelps was the hero of Mission Impossible for most of the television show. Does this change his twist heel turn at all? Also, how does Voight play this complicado desperado?
I mean, I learned way after 1996 that he was the hero of that show, which does make the movie so much more interesting. And I do think that Jon Voight does a good job. I think he's a pretty good actor in this.
I'll tell you one thing Jon Voight does really well is he plays Jim Phelps a lot older at first. Like he has more limited range of motion, and then at some point when he's acting shot, he looks like very infirmed. And then when he pops out at the end, I thought he did like kind of the action scenes. I thought he pulled those off. And just being like an old guy raving, I thought he had not even done most of his big ranting at that point. That was a really good casting.
There's a scene where later in the middle of the movie where Tom Cruise is emailing every email or messaging every messenger. And he gets super tired. He's nodding off as he's typing. And he has this image of Jon Voight coming at him. And then it turns out to be Claire. But later we learned that Jon Voight was alive that whole time. Do you think that was not a dream, but a prank that those two pulled? And they did just send Jon Voight out at him real quick.
I do have to say, learning that he was like the main character of the TV show, that I felt like a lot clicked when I learned that, and I don't know how the movie could more like could give you that information, but searching it out separately, like because I wanted to see who else, if any of the other characters were in the TV show, and so I just searched, and he's the only one that actually makes it into the movie. I thought that was very interesting.
Well, there is an Ethan
and that's
Hunt?
No.
Oh, there was not.
That's,
okay.
There was not, no.
That's a cool thing about this adaptation is it's one of those that's like, no, what if this is in the world of the show you watched and loved? At some point, Jim was the hero.
Yeah.
But this happens to, again, I said it before, to every fucking spy because eventually they can't trust anybody. This is in that same world. He's the same Jim Phelps, and that's why the original cast hated this so much.
And that is classically, though, also the end of the hero's journey. Like, we as a society only pay attention to, like, the beginning of the hero's journey.
The movie cuts off before this.
But the heroes always do become a twisted version of themselves and become villainous or become stuck in, like, reliving their heroic past. I mean, Jason of the Argonauts, he goes and he sleeps by the Argo every day until finally the prow breaks off and kills him. The point is, the hero falls apart. The hero becomes the dark version of everything he fought. And so, like, that is a truer representation to have Jim Phelps come back and be the bad guy.
I mean, like, I've heard of, like, Peter Graves, but to, like, pee on his grave after...
Booyah!
That character.
Greg Point. What's with the weird biblical undertones of the film?
That, I think, is an absolute deception. I don't like for Tom Cruise to sit in a chair and be like, Job. Who's Job? Job? That's some Shaggy and Scooby-Doo level bullshit.
There are a couple of moments where the movie needs to make really big jumps, and it just kind of grits its teeth and does it. Because there's that. And then at some point, they decided it's just not going to work unless Max and Ethan are face-to-face. And so they're just like, this person who is renowned for their secrecy, within 2 seconds of meeting her, she's going to pop off the mask. Like, okay.
he had, what did he have at the time? Like, what's before AOL?
Prodigy?
Yeah, so if he had Dark Prodigy, that's how you get to Max.
Smack his bitch up. I think we were supposed to be shocked when a major celebrity like Emilio Estevez gets killed in the first 10 minutes of the movie. Huh. The sound direction is intense in this movie. Is it impossibly perfect or a little too much?
I loved it. And I'll tell you what, like, there's, I think, some over-the-top Foley at different times, but it's all setting up. There are a couple different moments of profound silence in the movie, including the wire scene at Langley.
Yeah.
And the silence is so important, and the way it's earned, really, is by the big bombastic sound all around it.
I think he thinks about movies in a different way, and it's almost more like a musician of like, if you want that chorus to hit, that verse has to be super quiet or vice versa. The scene where Ethan is in the hotel room sending messages and Claire is walking on, like, those are, you can see the Foley artist just walking with big boots on potato chips the entire time.
Nobody expected this scene we talk about the most throughout this whole episode to be the emailing scene. Do these over-the-top stunts work throughout the movie? Are there any that are too silly, or are they all perfectly silly?
going based on later Mission Impossibles and Fast and the Furious since then, you can feel this either in your brain or your gut or your watch that it's been 9 minutes and we're about to get a set piece.
Yeah.
And the thing I love about this movie is that that all of that is thrown out the window, or it's being written now and it's going to be changed later. But this whole thing is like, it's just not giving you what you want when you want it, and then when you get it, it's that much better.
Yeah, we talked about it earlier, but the moment that is peak silliness and also I think perfect is just there's already been the helicopter crashing into the train. You feel like you've seen everything. You feel like it's over, but no, the very tip of the helicopter blade has to be like an inch from his throat, just to like it's the absolute height of too muchery.
And going back to our modern day Ethan Hunt, Captain America, like we don't need to watch him have a serum. Like he's just Ethan Hunt in a De Palma movie, Like this is just how it works.
Why does Jim shoot Claire, who is in on it with him and married to him? Why does he hate his beautiful wife?
Dude, that honestly becomes more and more disturbing the more you watch it, because you realize how in on everything she is and how unnecessary shooting her is. And then the earlier references to like being sick of it, like I think he only marries her. Also very weird on like a secret agent team to have two of them be married. Kittredge even points out, I was like, your wife, Claire.
That's pretty good. You might have a Kittredge a brewing.
But yeah,
SNL kid.
It's a deeply disturbing element of the movie.
All right, Greg, here to audition. You need to do 3 characters for your SNL audition. Your first is it's Kittredge from Mission Impossible. Yeah, and like I mean, I don't know if Phelps is a stable man. I think he's off his rocker at that point.
Yeah. And that's also such a great like spy message, right? That's bring the war back home. Like, if you have these spies out and they're doing all this shit all the time, then eventually they're going to come home and they're going to be like, who do I think should be president? And John Voight, he didn't even know about Barack Obama when he said that, but some part of his soul echoed when Barack Obama became president.
Some actors forget that they're just dorky theater kids who are paid too much. Yeah. And they're like, I couldn't get the character out of me. I just became him. And that really does feel like John Voight might have been a normal guy before he played Twisted Jim Phelps.
You'll never be the same.
Was that your Luke Wilson? Can you do that
again? No, I don't think. I can do things once.
I also, in the third act, so many villains just become you at the end of that night when you've played GTA for too long and you just start putting in cheat codes. Like, I was surprised you didn't grab a bazooka and just blow Claire out of the water.
Does this movie have the feeling of the first part of an 8 or 9 saga? How is it like the series that follows? How is it different?
I think that ultimately, like, we have talked about De Palma all night, and then when we were tasked to talk about Tom Cruise, we just didn't. But I do think that is it. Like, just watching him reliably be him, and he's not the bad guy from Collateral or even like basically the same guy from Edge of Tomorrow. We just know that he's gonna him, and it's not even through acting or dialogue or personality. It's stunts, but that's what we're going for. And so there's so many similarities. The United States sucks, and faces. We're gonna rip our faces off, but it's him.
I feel like this first movie is the movie that invented the concept of his like just running as high cinema. And I'll tell you, like, if it's so many movies, I don't know if you want to do the whole rewatch, Mike, but they did a very interesting thing, which is this is the first movie in the series, and then Dead Reckoning, the most recent one, is almost like in a weird way, feels like a direct sequel to Mission Impossible. And so there's like this jump from 1 all the way to 8 or whatever it is, and it engages with a lot of the same things. And I'll tell you one big one is there is so much Tom Cruise running in this movie. They
read the message.
They read the meme. They saw the meme and they were like, this is what the people want. And so the camera will pan back and it's like, yeah, that's right. He's going to run all the way across this roof and we're going to watch it.
It's weird that you could hear the director say that, though, from the background.
I'm glad. That was bold.
In the blending of TV and movies that has been going on over the last 20 years, I do love that there are things like Dead Reckoning or No Time to Die, the last James Bond, where like they do feel like series finales, like where everybody gets to come back and everybody like there's now all these cameos of all the people just because we're celebrating. I don't even know if this is a movie. We're just celebrating the whole series.
At a certain point, Kittredge says, dying slowly in America can be a very expensive proposition. In light of this week, discuss.
Yeah, damn. We've known what the problem is for a long time.
Beside Ethan and Luther, no one else from this movie makes it into the other movies in the series. Who do you miss most from these teams?
I think I miss Claire.
Yeah.
I wish Claire had made it out of this movie. I wish what they had done is just in the next movie just been like, well, she got shot, sure, but then she came back.
And, I mean, movies do that all the time.
Yeah.
But there's also a blonde foreign lady who I don't think has any lines, but dies in a car explosion.
Okay, wait, no, she does have one line. She is like giving out information during the party before she gets exploded.
Mm-hmm.
And clearly her thing is I can talk without moving my lips. And so she does that and it looks so goofy.
Look, you need your like technical person, your internet person, your bomb expert, and you need your person who can't.
Ventriloquist.
Yeah.
Your ventriloquist who you've enlisted.
What if she is the Han of the series?
They all have different skills. That's what the TV show is about, right? Her skill is ventriloquy.
Ventriloquist. Is this the first spy film without a scene in Prague? No, I don't think I've ever seen. No, wait, it's Prague. They're in Prague, guys. We're good. Technology can be both predictive and pathetic in old spy movies. How does the tech in this film hold up to our modern sensibilities?
I think it's fine. It didn't take me out of the movie.
I have to say, I know I said it earlier, the masks are way better in this first one than they ever are again. They had like perfected the art of that in this one. It is very funny to say that like we got a message on the computer because instead of email. And then there is a part where Luther talks about the types of computers he wants to use, and it's the most pretend stuff. He's like, they got those new 686s with the RISC chip.
Oh,
yeah.
We need 456 discs on this one,
Dude. The knock list was on a single cassette, which could somehow hold 230 megabytes.
Do you think that the era of tapes in airplanes disappeared because they kept putting this shit in the airplane seat and exploding the players?
Yes, they're like, guys, that is a hazard. Smoke elsewhere.
Please don't do that.
But nobody in the movie ever said like enhance to the point where like you could see their like social security number.
No.
We didn't know we could enhance yet.
This is pre-enhance.
Pre-enhancement. What is the first mask you would make if you got that mask-making technology?
Oh, fuck. Greg's wife.
Greg, rebuttal?
I'm going to go for Jim Gaff again because I think I have the body to pull it off.
Jim Gaff again?
What's the deal with my observational style?
Oh, my God, my hot plugins.
I wish I had written some jokes before coming up here. Take that, Jim Gaff again. I assume that gets your number.
Yeah, you read him for filth.
Mike,
And he's our most famous listener.
What's that actually depressing? We should have a bigger listener.
That would be so tragic if we had a famous person who listened to the show and then we insulted them.
Mike, what's your mask?
What would my mask be? It would be Jim Carrey in the mask, not the green one. Stanley
Ipkiss. All right, I'm going to pick Lloyd Christmas then, and Greg's going to do Ace Ventura. No, Jim Carrey from The Majestic. That's Greg.
I'm going to do Ace Ventura from the second one because I'm much more familiar with that.
Rhino Butthole.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to do the son of Ace Ventura, that weird little tubby kid.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Is that a movie with Jamie Kennedy?
They all are.
The son of the mask meets the son of Ace Ventura?
Why didn't they make that movie?
Oh, man, that would be perfect.
The Carey Avengers. Junior.
We are taking the quickest of breaks, and when we come back, it's award season. Now's the time I'm going to say, can you believe Mission Impossible isn't nominated for any Oscars? But, of course, we're going to give it a bunch of awards tonight. Let's give it a bunch of awards tonight, starting with 90s slang. Ryan.
Oh, man. My 90s slang is, of course, when I believe Tom Cruise, dressed as like a senator,
Yes.
says,
Senator Ross Perot.
I believe we're still a democracy, aren't we? In the 90s, we were.
Greg.
There's a lot of cool spy talk in this. It's very much like in The Sting, how they use all the cool language. Obviously, like The Sting kind of inspired this a little bit. When they're following someone, they say, "Is the person in the pocket?" They're in the pocket. Oh, he's out of the pocket. Alex slips out of the pocket in the beginning of it. I loved that.
And that's also like early 2010 slang.
Exactly right. You're out of pocket.
That was out of pocket, Mike.
But it's because in the 90s, everything was in the pocket.
Yeah.
And now everything's gotten, oops, all pockets. It's all out of the pocket. We're going to give that to democracy.
They deserve a win.
Musical moment, Greg.
I'm going to go with the second time we hear the dun 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 dun, and it's Ethan Hunt has just described like how tough this is going to be, and then they're like, can we do this? And he's like, we're going to do this, and then like, bah, 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 and you're just like so ready, and then it gets so loud, and it's getting so loud so that it can then back off for what becomes like the most quiet moment of the movie. And that's the sound direction blew me away there.
Right, guy?
You know what we didn't talk about is, and I know we don't have time, so I'll talk fast, is that there's the first intro and I believe the second intro, and then the opening credits, which are basically TV credits, which show us clips from what the movie that we're about to see,
Yeah.
including most of their deaths, but in a way like where we can't really tell what's happening.
And that gets retained throughout the series. Every movie begins with a clip show of what you will see.
That's
Please don't
awesome.
leave the theater. These are the following events that will transpire.
I can see all movies taking this tactic, like that. But my music.
That's what our sister show does. The superhero show. In the beginning, we
Oh,
scream,
yeah.
here's what we're going to talk about. Please listen.
in which we. But my musical moment is Danny Elfman and I. We have issues. Sometimes I think he's great. I think he's great with main themes. Sometimes with the rest of the score, he might be a little too elf manly. But there is a moment that I both love and hate where Tom Cruise jumps onto the helicopter, and we are in a different score. We are in some sort of like John Williams, Alan Silvestri, Back to the Future. Like it is the most swelling, epic. Not the whole like dun dun dun,
Yeah.
but like this is timpanis are now out, and you can see the timpani player like in the background. I don't know, but
Just
like
on the train.
I felt it.
We're going to give that one to Greg.
Woo!
The cringiest moment, and I think we can all say it together.
Yep.
Am I right in assuming?
Yeah,
It is definitely the
I've tasted the goods.
when he puts the gum down and says red, green, and then jumps.
What? Hey, pervert. She's your wife. We know you fucked.
Yeah.
Why would you say it in such a weird, lascivious way?
This is like it's not the worst thing that's ever happened in one of these movies that we've watched. This might be the cringiest moment in any movie. That is your wife. Why are you saying it like that? And Jon Voight breathed so much life into the line.
Real method acting there.
Yeah, dude.
I will say, because it's been about 6 years since I seen this movie last, I misremembered it and smashed it together with his Anaconda character. So I did think I remembered it as a lot more drool and like slobbering.
Yeah. Is he the person that got?
He said that pretty normally.
Is he the person that got swallowed and spit back up?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Pound for pound performance, Ryan.
Oh, it is Henry Czerny as Kittredge. This is the movie. This is the genre. This is everything De Palma wanted. He certainly, although I think he tried in some moments, could not ask Tom Cruise to do this. And there are so many people that are props purposefully, like Emilio Estevez or Kristen Scott Thomas, who just have to do their job so we think they're going to be around forever. Or even Claire Emmanuel Bert. But Kittredge just knows what movie he's in, even if he's in a different movie than everybody else. And I can see how if you're watching this for the first time or you're watching this in 96, how he really stands out poorly. I'm sorry, he stands out wonderfully.
I'm also a Kittredge kid. He really does stand out in this movie. He is the one who shows the audience what the movie is. His scene in the aquarium like delivers us from one type of movie to another. De Palma is bringing us from the world of the show into the world of the movie that he's crafting for us, and Kittredge is the vehicle where we really see this is campy, over the top, ridiculous. His reading of the line, if you want to shake hands with the devil, that's none of my business, but I prefer you do it in hell.
Which is borderline like Jack Nicholson as the Joker.
Yes,
like,
yes.
dialogue.
Oh my God, it's so over the top. It is so upsettingly over the top, and it's perfect. It's everything you need. The best part of the movie that I have referenced 100 times tonight, Dead Reckoning, the latest
Part
Mission
one.
Impossible movie is they bring back Kittredge, and
Nice.
he is the most missed element of all the movies that he's not in, because he's the breathing heart and soul of the tone of this movie is found in this one character.
I think over a couple movies they tried to recreate it with Alec Baldwin.
Yes.
And it just did not work. He's just too Jack in our minds,
Yes.
you know? But this is like its own performance. There's a line in the aforementioned aquarium scene where he's like, well, Hunt, you seem really intent on blaming yourself.
Yeah.
While he has clearly set up so much stuff in order to blame him.
him.
And then he's like, oh, I'm going to put this seed. Because he's just like Ethan Hunt minus, right? Like he just doesn't have the serum and he doesn't have the smarts. And so he's like, you know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to tell him that he's blaming himself too much.
And De Palma's throwing an unprecedented amount of Dutch angles at you.
Dutch.
Take your Benadryl before watching that scene, folks. You both are clearly right. He does get it. But I want to call out Tom Cruise. It's his face when he almost hits the floor in the Langley scene. It feels like the stunt guys didn't tell Tom they were really going to drop him down. He seemed so nervous that his big old monotooth was going to crack right in the middle, slamming on that face.
Do you have one? You keep bringing it up.
Is this too much? Is it too rude?
It's becoming hate speech at this point.
And I think it's called monotooth.
Yeah,
that's why I thought when you were like, what was the scariest scene for Tom Cruise? It's because you can see his real reactions in that scene.
Yeah.
He's nervous.
They dropped him right towards the ground.
Director's signature moment, Greg.
I'm gonna go with it. There's little flashes of De Palma, and it's not the big set pieces. It's these small moments. I'm gonna go with the split diopter shot of Kittredge talking to a different agent, and it's after William Landlow has blown it, and he's like, "I want him on a watchtower in Alaska," and this is like such a small snippet, but the shot is so ostentatious of like the foreground perfectly in focus, the background perfectly in focus. I love it.
I think Greg's now Kittredge mixed with like McGruff, the crime dog.
They both have the same great coat.
God, if this movie was exactly the same, but it was McGruff instead of Kittredge, would that have been better?
It would have blown up at the box office. Number one.
Should I go?
Please.
I have to go with the I'm telling Phelps what he wants to hear, but I'm thinking, and you would think that I'm thinking what I'm telling him because that's in my brain, but it is actually other scene. Like I'm realizing what happened at the same time. That to me, having watched the movie Sisters, I don't know if we mentioned that movie, but all the stuff is just like, it's him, De Palma, thinking of movies as a playground where you can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Right? Like there is this classic way to edit, but it's also your fucking playground, bitch. So just do it. But like staying in the genre at the same time, I think is so impressive.
We don't like to do it here, but those are the two most De Palma-iest moments in the movie. So they are tied. Before we get out of here, recommendation. If you liked Mission Impossible, what else would you like, Ryan?
I don't think I've recommended this before, and I don't think it's a talked about movie anymore, but it was super under the radar when it came out, despite having one Bobby D, who is a recent father. So congratulations to him. But he made a movie that has more violence than this movie. Lots of bazookas, lots of car chases, called Ronin. And
yeah, dude,
that
Ronin's
movie
dope.
Fucking rules. I think it was super slept on at the time, but the whole like, let's have 12 scenes of conversation and then we're gonna blow your ass off with an action scene, I think is sort of in this particular entry of Mission Impossible's like lineage.
When I was a kid, I liked movies like Ronin because I thought like there's not over the top action. There's a scene where a guy backs somebody into a cup of hot coffee, and that's like the action scene. I thought that was cool.
And Greg, what is yours?
Oh man, I had so many for this one. I was thinking of The Third Man the entire time I was watching this. If you want to watch like an old noir movie that feels like, I don't know, like that, like it feels like it's made with modern sensibilities. It's Orson Welles and the guy that plays Orson Welles' friend in Citizen Kane,
Joey Cots.
And the way this movie is alive and the momentum of it, and it does a lot of the same things where it like shows you the same incident a couple times. You're trying to figure out what's different between them. There's a lot of like I noticed how many stairs there are in this movie. There's so much of that in The Third Man. Like there'll be these chase scenes where suddenly you're running through an old castle and then you're in in a bombed out ruin, and it's like people are going downstairs and then upstairs. I found myself thinking of of that movie so much while I was watching this.
And the zither. Like, there's a lot of zither in the movie. We can't talk about it without the zither.
More movies should have zither.
That's true. It's a full zither soundtrack.
Scroll nut zithers on that movie.
My rec, and maybe I'm wrong, it just feels like this movie's not talked about enough. Not action at all. But if you want spies, it's got them. You're Gary Oldman. You're Colin Firth. You're Mark Strong. You're Toby...
Keith?
Arnim Zola.
Nice.
You're Toby's Keith. And Tom Hardy. It's not only does it have spies, it has tailors. And it has tinkers. It's Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Spy. It's just an awesome, dope spycraft movie about a bunch of spies who are too over the hill and don't know who to trust anymore. But not action-packed at all. I am going to stress that if you haven't seen this movie.
I will say that it is not an easy watch. It's a fulfilling watch, but not an easy watch.
Very different kind of movie, but I fucking love it.
Have you guys dove in this era that we're in with, like, so many slow horses. And then Day of the Jackal's now out, and there's this new Keira Knightley show called Black Doves. And I feel like there's these, like...
TV's overwhelming, you guys.
Yeah.
I was thinking about getting into Slow Horses, but I think they're already in like the 3rd or 4th season. Like, what do I do? It's too much.
TV at this point is like music, where you're like, oh, fuck this, just pop punk for me. Like, at TV now, you have to be like, all right, just spy shows now.
It's making me way more into movies, honestly, because it's like there's an overwhelming amount of movies too, but it doesn't feel like I have to make like a 200-hour commitment.
Right.
You both are so correct, and thank you for talking so I could do some math.
You did it, bud.
I did it. It's upsetting because I'm the worst at math, not just on this show. In the world.
Maybe in the world.
I was counting simple by fives. How do we think it's gonna do? That's what I should have said. No, don't answer that. I'm gonna announce this first, and then we'll talk about how it's gonna do. Ryan, you got 74 points.
Oh, that's a lot.
Okay.
Greg, you got 72 points. Ryan, you won, and you are my best friend for the week.
Whew. I did watch this movie really hard.
I guess you watched it better than Greg. I didn't think that necessarily listening, but I guess you're a better person.
To be honest, as of when this drops, the Lahane episode will have already dropped, and Greg won that by so many that I will never win this season. Like, this season is over for me.
No matter how many episodes you win.
We go both by record and by point
differential. Yeah.
It's a big one.
That's what you got.
That's why it's not ungentlemanly to run up the score.
Yeah, there was a time where I was on the ground with a bloody nose, and Greg was just like, point. Here's a good point. This is about the movie. Also,
as for how it's going to do, it's got a real chance.
How about bottom 8? This is the bottom 8 sneaker in. So, like, as we start to separate the cream from the much more delicious cream,
chaff.
This one is just so much more surprising and less disappointing than so many other movies that we have come across so far.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed. What a delight. Go out and watch it, folks. Coming up this season, we got Fargo. We got That Thing You Do. And we have a brief 1996 interlude as we look back at the year that was 2024 via movies, TV, music, and so much more. Until then, keep watching those movies.